I am Daniel Licus, and welcome to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She's been a psychic since a child. However, she didn't realize she was also a medium until later life. And of course, an author too, no other than Miss June Edward. Welcome, Miss June on Abstract Essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure. I'm a relationship expert. I'm a best-selling international author. My latest book, All's Fair in Love and Karma, is a result of my 7-week online relationship program that teaches people how energy works in your everyday life and helps you reconcile relationships, whether it's romantic or otherwise. And I'm also a psychic medium. I passed to the other side and died at the age of 27, and I came back here by choice.
So, Miss June, let's talk about sex is just another form of communication. So tell us, if sex is a form of communication, what are the specific methods it's uniquely suited to convey that language often fails to capture?
So communication and trust are one of the 5 lessons outlined in my book that everyone absolutely has to learn in order for their soul to advance. And you have to trust that there's a higher power, no matter what you call it, there is only one. And you have to trust that you made the plan here. And everything that's happening in your life is happening for a reason. And communication falls under that. You have to learn to let people know your wants, your desires, what you need. Otherwise, we don't know. We don't know by osmosis, just by looking at someone what they want or need. And when it gets down to sex, sex is another form of that communication and trust. If you can't trust and communicate outside the bedroom, you're not going to be able to trust and communicate with someone inside the bedroom. It's just that other form of communication. And yes, we can communicate through language verbally, or we can communicate through signs and symbols. And the way couples interact and react, women are very verbal. We need that communication to stimulate our brains before we get involved in any sexual matters for the most part, and before we can connect with another person on that level. Men, on the other hand, are very different. They're very visual. They need to see things and picture things before they can make that connection and open up to be verbal for someone else. So, I always coach the people that are working with me that, if you're a woman that comes home and throws on her old sweatpants and a sweat shirt or a dirty t-shirt or an old ripped t-shirt or something during the day when you come home, and that's what your significant other is seeing, take it in the backyard and burn it. No one wants to see that. You don't want to see him coming home slobberly and wearing ripped this and torn that and old baggy whatever. You'd like to see him look good for you, just the same way he wants to see you look good for him. So because men are visual, when you come home and maybe you've worked hard all day and you've wearing a suit or something like that, you can take that off and put something a little bit more sexy, a little bit more visual, something that's going to be a little more attractive. So when you're in the kitchen and, whatever it is you're doing, he's looking, he's watching, he's being interested. And my same thing goes for the guys. Don't lie around the house in some, ripped pair of sweatsuit pants and a torn ripped t-shirt. Put something decent on, put something nice on, put something that's going to attract us as well. It goes both ways.
So, how do you develop a vocabulary for this type of communication? And what happens when partners have a different dialects or level of fluency?
So the reality it is, most partners would not be together if that were the case, because kind likes attract. You're on the same energetic frequency, and that's what you're going to pull into your life. If you're working too hard at your relationship, you're in the wrong relationship. The same thing if you're compromising too much. If you're compromising more than you want, Every relationship is built on compromise. It doesn't matter what it is. And everything's a relationship, whether it's your family, your friend, a romantic relationship. But if you're compromising, again, too much, it's the wrong relationship for you. Couples develop their own type of language. You might call your partner babe, and they might be like, I am not a baby. I'm not babe. Don't call me that. I find it demeaning. I find it beneath me. If you're not listening to that and you're continuing to do it, guess what? You don't really want to invest yourself enough in that relationship. And the other partner is going to continue to distance themselves until you eventually separate.
Interesting and empowering answer, Miss June. All communication requires both sending and receiving. How does mindful presence and active listening translate into a sexual experience?
So everything has to be a give and take in life. Everything has to stay balanced. Everything has to be an equal energy exchange. If you've got a partner that just keeps running at the mouth about themselves all the time, you need to let them know that they need to just sit quietly for a moment and listen to what it is that you have to say, because you have something that you need to get across to them. Sometimes it has to be to that point where you have to literally say, sit down, shh, don't talk, just listen. We all have to develop both of those skills, learning to communicate what it is we want heard, and then listening to the other person so that you can understand exactly what it is they're trying to tell you. And don't read things into it. Many people are triggered by different things. And if you're in a situation where you're having some conflict, maybe you're not getting along very well, one of the things that I recommend couples practice is mirroring each other. And what that means is this. You come home from a hard day work, you're walking into the kitchen and your wife's in the kitchen, and maybe she's a stay-at-home mom, or maybe she works part-time and she's got a busy life. She's just as tired as you are. Don't immediately come out and say, so how was your day today? Because questions can trigger people. Okay?
Yes.
She might turn around and say, what the hell do you care how my day was? You were gone all day, blah, blah, blah. So it can be triggering. So by mirroring, you just make a statement and say, I had a really tough day today. I hope yours wasn't as challenging as mine was. Well, that wasn't a question. That was a statement. And that's going to give the other person the opportunity to stop for a second, reflect on what you said, work it in their mind for a second with, oh, they had a tough day. They're not asking about mine. They're hoping I had a good day. Then you can respond. And then if they start asking like, well, what happened to you? You can now respond to that, let them know what happened. And then you can ask the question, what happened with your day? That's mirroring. Don't be the first one to ask a question because it's triggering, and follow the lead on the other person.
I like that, Miss June. Mirroring for sure. At its healthiest, what is the most fundamental message that sex communicates between partners? Is it I desire you, I accept you, or I trust you, or something else entirely?
So, we're all humans, okay? There wouldn't be any other humans here if we didn't have sex. So you need to be able to talk about sex with your partner as well. But sex is the fundamental glue that holds a relationship together when other things are falling apart. Let's say you've got a new baby, you just bought a house, you changed jobs, any of those things. They're very stressful events in a couple's life. Maybe you've just had enough of everything. You don't want to talk to the other person. If you were just friends, you'd probably part ways. But because you have that intimacy, that sexual intimacy with that other person, you know them on a level that no one else does. You know what it is they need to be able to overcome all the rest of the stress that's in their life, because sex itself is supposed to be and meant to be a stress relief for us as well. Make no mistake, it wouldn't feel as good as it does if it wasn't supposed to. It's absolutely supposed to feel that good. It's not just about having children. It's there to make that glue and make that relationship that building block, that foundation, so that no matter what else the universe throws at you, you can stay together as a couple. And it's one of the first things that falls apart when communication fails in a relationship, right? When you're not able to suddenly communicate and you're fighting, what's the next thing that goes? The sex, right?
Yes,
Because that is the
definitely.
foundation.
The foundation indeed. And Miss June, if sex communication, then sexual problems are often forms of miscommunication. What are some common misheard methods in sexual relationship?
Well, let's say that someone is having either a physical problem or an emotional problem and he's not able to perform in the bedroom. Right off the bat, the woman might feel that he's not attracted to her anymore. Maybe he doesn't care about her anymore. Maybe he's cheating on her. I mean, we jump to all kinds of, things going on in our mind of what could be happening, right? Instead of having an honest communication and saying, what's going on? Is it emotional? Is it physical? Let's figure out what the problem is together. This is where the answer should lie.
A huge part of communication is nonverbal. How do you learn to read and respect our partner's nonverbal cues during intimacy?
Well, clearly, if it's a one night stand, that's not going to be the case. But if you paid attention to your partner in a relationship, then you should easily be able to pick up on each other's cues. And if you're not sure, ask. I do not believe in couples wearing clothing to bed. I don't believe in it. I think it's just another boundary between allowing sexual relationships to happen when needed during the night or whatever. It's also not the healthiest thing because they've done enough studies to show that your heat regulates in the body better without wearing clothing. But I would always wear my pajamas to bed if I was not very happy with my husband. And he would ask me, why are you wearing
That's the
pajamas?
key.
He only had to ask once. And I said, well, when you want to talk to me and straighten this out, they'll come off.
That's the cue, people. So
And there
how?
was the time that I was
Yeah.
sick and I had to say to him point blank, listen, I'm really, really sick. I don't want to get dressed. I'm wearing these. I'm going to bed. I've got the flu or whatever. I'm not angry with you.
So how does the modern essential focus on consent reframe a sex as a continuous, enthusiastic, or conversation rather than the monologue or assume agreement?
Well, I think that gets down to your nonverbal cues, unless you're willing to say, is tonight the night? Other than that, realistically, it's nonverbal cues. If you walk over and start snuggling your partner in the back of the neck and then you're kissing each other, obviously they're agreeing to whatever, and you go from there. Obviously, if it gets to some point where someone says, not tonight, honey, or I'm all done, I don't want to go that route, there you go. There's your answer.
Definitely. And Miss June, if you relate our topic today for your book, all spheres in love and karma, what it's all about, if
So
you can
that
relate it.
Sure, that speaks to the 5 lessons, the soul lessons that you have to learn in order for your soul to advance, because we're not the suit that sits here, we are the soul that's inside. And trust and communication is one of those 5 lessons that everyone has to learn. And if you don't learn it, you keep repeating the same problems over and over again. Let's just say that you are nonverbal in a relationship. You never talk to your partner. You never let them know what the problems are, what it is you like or don't like, what's on your mind. You're going to be very unhappy and very disgruntled, and that relationship is going to end either by you or the other person. And that doesn't matter if it's a sexual relationship, if it's just maybe lifelong friends and you don't like the fact that they want to go out every Friday night and get hammered and you can't do that. You're married, you've got a child, you work, whatever it is. If you can't communicate, That one's going to end. It's going to be a problem with the next relationship. The universe will keep giving you the same thing with a different face until you can learn the lesson.
What does a prolonged lack of sexual intimacy communicate in a long term relationship, and how can that silence be addressed constructively?
It creates distance in everything. You start living separate lives. You're just two people living under the same roof at that point. And in order to change a situation, one of the two people has to change. When I have my 7-week online program, the relationship mastery program, I only work with one person in the relationship, not two, because that never works. That just becomes a he said, she said, and one of you will claim that the person in the middle is the one taking the other person's side. So I work with one person in the relationship, and they need to learn how to change. Because when you change, everything in your life, everything around you changes. For every action, there's an equal or greater reaction. So when you do things differently in your relationship, the other person has no choice but to change, because the same old won't work anymore, will it? You're doing things differently. So everything is fixable. Everything is manageable. You just need to learn how to change yourself first, because that's where it starts. And you can say, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. Absolutely, there's nothing wrong with you. However, if you do things differently, you might have a different outcome, and you might end up with a much happier situation for yourself.
Indeed, interesting answer and empowering as well, Miss June. And how can a past sexual experiences or trauma create a filter through which current sexual communication is interpreted, often leading to misunderstanding?
Again, when you understand why everything happens in your life, you can look at it from a very different perspective. Everything in life is perspective. Let's say you were raped. Do you think everybody in the world wants to rape you? That's a you issue. You have to understand that rape occurred, number one, because it was supposed to. You wrote it into your plan for whatever reason. As horrific as it was, you should look at what you can take out of it that is positive for you. They're about power, control. Learn how to take your power and your control back. Learn how to put yourself first. Understand that everything is a learning experience in life, and it's not something to paint that same brush over every person and every situation. We live with trauma from day to day. I've lived through pretty much any trauma that anybody can come up with. And you have to look at the why behind it and how it's going to change you as a person, how it can empower you as a person, and how it can actually make your relationships that much better and that much more empowering.
Much better and empowering. I like that, Miss June. And how can couples create a safe space to talk about their sexual communication without judgment, to negotiate desires and share misunderstandings?
First of all, I'd say turn off the television set. Certainly don't have one in your bedroom.
Yes.
Secondly, I'd say make sure that you're in a relationship that you've been in long enough. I mean, people jump into bed way too fast. You should be comfortable and know the person that you want to be with before you jump into bed, because that's an exchange of energy, and you carry that piece of their soul with you forever. That doesn't leave. So that's the first thing I would say. And if you know that person that well that you're willing to have sex with them and be in that type of a relationship, you should be able to just comfortably lie in each other's arms, so that you're showing the love between the two of you, and then be able to have any type of conversation that you need to, and know that you're not going to be judged by it, that you are in a safe space, that they're not going to be using it against you. And when someone does tell you something that is that intimate, you should make sure that you never use that to hurt the other person. There's a difference between loving them and hurting them.
Miss June, Why is it, or why is vulnerability the cornerstone of this form of communication? How does the risk of being truly seen physically and emotionally deepen the connection?
That's not the cornerstone. Fear is absolutely not the cornerstone. Fear is the opposite of love. You cannot have love and fear at the same time. You can't. Love is the cornerstone. Love is the cornerstone of everything in this world. It's the answer to everything in this world.
Indeed, love, love, love people, and can couple with history of poor sexual communication learn a new, healthier language together? What does the process look like?
Absolutely. And again, it starts with one person. Um, I have found in my experiences that working with couples, it doesn't normally work. It's much more difficult. It's a longer process. It starts with one person. And again, it only takes one person to make or break a situation. And when that one person can now convey that information that they've learned and change the behavior that they're using with the other person will put their defenses down, come around, and you will find that the two of you can have a much more loving, committed relationship on any level that you need to have it. There are situations where men are dysfunctional. They aren't able to work to perform due to some type of physical deformity or an accident or a health issue. And sex for men is 90% in the brain. That's the reality. And it is for women as well, but for women it's more communicative than it is visual. So there's lots of ways to have sex. There's lots of ways to do things. There's always a way around so that people can get what they need out of it. They found that paraplegic men can still have technically an orgasm, even though they're not getting an erection. Why? Because it's all in their head. It's in their brain. So there's lots of ways around things. It's never a dead end if you really want to try and you really want to put it together and you really want to make it a happier situation for the both of you. Sex is a very natural process, and it shouldn't be the this taboo that's been put out there from all the religions and things. I don't believe in, freewheeling sex, and, I'm not someone that's going to agree with open marriages and things like that, because in my experience, they never work. They're usually something that's being forced on one of the parties that really doesn't want it, but they want to not lose the person that they're with. The foundation of a relationship is two people.
Miss Jen, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love letters in third season, and movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss June, if you truly embrace sex as a profound form of communication, how would you transform our relationships and our understanding of intimacy?
Again, you need to understand that it is the glue that holds your relationship together. And if you want to transform it, you have to transform yourself first. You have to understand how it works, why it works, and what your outcome is that you want.
Yes, indeed, Miss June. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
You can just go to my website, juneedward.com. There's no S in that, juneedward.com. There are links to all of my books. There is a free webinar you can take on relationships you can click on it there, or just go to go.juneedward.com. You can sign up for that. You can schedule an appointment with me if you'd like as well under services. And there's lots of videos in the back for you to watch as well. And this one will be up there soon as well.
Yes, people, let's support Miss June Edward, because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come, more and more empowering webinar to come. So, Miss June, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you as well. Have a wonderful day.
Moticon people, see you soon.